Hello again. I suspect that many viewers have seen that Lenny Henry, the black comedian, is complaining that not enough black people go to pop festivals like that at Glastonbury. Lenny Henry is a leading light in the campaign to try and erase white culture, history and literature, and to insert black people everywhere with the aim of making it look as though there have always been lots of black people around in Britain playing important roles. In the description to this video I give a link to a piece from the BBC website in which Lenny Henry mentions quite casually that it's great to have David Olusoga on television talking about black history that goes back to Hadrian's Wall. What is going on here is quite simple, although nonetheless frightening for that. There was, of course, no black history at all at Hadrian's Wall. There were some Berber soldiers from North Africa, the Aurelian Moors, but they were certainly not black. This is a neat piece of linguistic trickery. People began by saying that African soldiers were stationed at Hadrian's Wall, which is technically true, although we don't often refer to the Egyptians and Tunisians as Africans in this way. Once everybody was used to hearing about the Africans at Hadrian's Wall, people just switched to calling them black, and the job was done. Black history at Hadrian's Wall, as Lenny Henry says. I don't know if he really believes this or not. What is happening is that activists are now looking at British history, culture and literature and painting people black, hoping that nobody will notice what they have done. When the paint dries, as it has in the case of Hadrian's Wall, everybody simply accepts that some men 2,000 years ago in the north of England were black, although it is of course a pack of fairy tales. The truth is that English history is almost entirely Northern European. Anglo-Saxons from Germany, Denmark and Holland, Vikings from Scandinavia, and the Normans, who were of course also Vikings. These are the roots of England. It is who we are. Our culture and literature springs from these roots. From Beowulf to Chaucer, Charles Dickens to J.R.R. Tolkien, our literature is steeped in the culture of North Europe. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, for example, is drawn entirely from North European mythological motifs. Everybody is white European, just as in Beowulf. This is the dominant culture of which Lenny Henry speaks disapprovingly in the conversation on the BBC website. It is important to colonise our mythology and culture, of course, which is why Lenny Henry will be starring as a hobbit in the new Amazon version of the Lord of the Rings stories. I give a link about this. There will also, of course, in the same series be black women starring as dwarfs. This too is colonisation. Here's another example, a brilliant bit of work this. Apart from kings and queens, the only visual image of a person from Tudor Britain which many people can now bring to mind is the black trumpeter, John Blank. He has become the symbol of Tudor England for many people. The weird thing is he wasn't even English. He was Spanish and only stayed in England for a few years, yet his image, that of a black man, has now been seared into our minds as being somehow typical of Tudor England. That too is colonisation of our past. This morning I talked about the Penguin Books website, which was trying to erase white novels and replace them with books by black authors. When they couldn't simply jettison a book, an attempt was made to paint the characters black in order to trick gullible readers. I gave the example of Heathcliff. Here's another quotation, and I give a link to it in the description to this video. From Jane Eyre's mixed-race Bertha Mason to Great Expectations' dependence on transportation and the opportunities for wealth provided by settler colonialism. Nice try, Penguin Books. Note the bold assertion that it is accepted that Bertha Mason from Jane Eyre was mixed race. What grounds do we have for supposing this? Well, in the text we are told that she is from a Creole family And today we often assume that this means mixed race, but it does not now, and it certainly didn't in the 19th century. Creoles in the West Indies were simply the descendants of European settlers who had been born in the colonies rather than Britain. They were rather looked down upon by people who had been born and raised in Britain and seen as a little lower class. This is absolutely nothing to do with being mixed race. Is there anything in the text about Bertha Mason's description that will give us any ideas what she was supposed to look like? Why, yes. Jane Eyre is a favourite book of mine, and although it is, I realise, colossally sad, I have several copies of it in the house. Here are two. I've got 3 or 4 more elsewhere. Let's see how Rochester's wife is described. I recognised well that purple face, those bloated features. Now, I've seen people with purple faces, and I'm sure viewers have. Fat people, heavy drinkers, the old and corpulent, and so on. All these people have been white. Could a black person or somebody who was mixed race have a purple face like that? No, of course not. It tells us that Bertha Mason is white. The person who wrote that casual remark about Bertha Mason being mixed race for Penguin Books has not only not read the book about which he or she is commenting, but also knows no history and doesn't understand the meaning of the word Creole. It's pure political propaganda. An attempt is underway to colonise our history, literature and culture, and to paint people black wherever this can be managed without anybody noticing. I do notice, though, which is why I'm drawing attention to these games. This is a sinister attempt to rewrite the past.